In a small American town named Riverdale, there lived a young man named Jacob Smith. He grew up in a poor family after his mother's death, left alone with his father, Richard Smith. Richard worked on construction sites to support the family and provide Jacob with a better future. From a young age, Jacob was fascinated by computers. He spent hours in front of the screen, studying the basics of programming. In school, he often solved tasks faster than his peers and helped them understand complex computer science questions. His father watched this with pride but also some concern. He didn't understand this world of digits and codes. One day, when Jacob was 16, he accidentally discovered a vulnerability in one of the games he and his friends played. His curiosity and thirst for knowledge led him to the idea that he could use his skills to hack into other systems. Initially, he limited himself to being a white hat, fixing vulnerabilities and reporting them to developers. Over time, Jacob began to learn about black hats, hackers who use their skills for malicious purposes. His interest in this darker side of programming began to grow, and he started exploring more complex and forbidden methods. He infiltrated secure systems, bypassed firewalls, and uncovered personal information. All of this was done in secret, even from his father. When Jacob finished school, he faced a choice: to attend university and pursue a career in programming or to continue down the path of hacking. His father dreamed of a future where his son would become a successful engineer or programmer. But Jacob was torn between these two worlds. One day, Jacob managed to hack into a server of a major company and gain access to valuable information. However, he realized that this information could impact many people. He understood that his actions could harm others, and an internal conflict tore him apart. Deciding to change his life, Jacob told his father the whole truth about his actions. Richard was shocked but supported his son. Together, they decided to find legal ways to apply his skills. Jacob enrolled in university, where he was able to develop his programming abilities and joined a team combating cybercrime. Jacob became an invaluable asset to the cybersecurity team. His knowledge and experience helped prevent numerous attacks and safeguard confidential information. His relationship with his father also grew stronger. Richard was proud of his son and saw how he transformed his life. Jacob continued to refine his programming and cybersecurity skills. He participated in hacking competitions, demonstrating his abilities in a controlled environment. These competitions not only showcased his talent but also provided new knowledge and connections. One day, Jacob received a letter from an anonymous sender. It revealed that someone knew about his dark past actions. Jacob felt that his secrets could be exposed and began an investigation to uncover the person behind the threatening message. Jacob applied all his skills to the investigation. He followed clue after clue, unraveling the mysteries of the past. Along the way, he encountered dangerous situations and risked his safety. He had to decide whether to continue the investigation or stop, to avoid putting himself and his loved ones in danger. Ultimately, Jacob discovered that the sender of the letters was a former hacker who knew about his past deeds. This individual wanted to test whether Jacob had changed his path and stopped hacking. Meeting this person led to a profound conversation about how people can change and find redemption. After the encounter with the former hacker, Jacob felt that the heavy burden of his past began to lighten. He realized that forgiveness applied not only to the guilty party but also to himself. Jacob continued his work in cybersecurity, but now his motivation extended beyond preventing attacks. He also aimed to help others avoid the mistakes he had made. With each passing day, Jacob became a more skilled and sought-after specialist in the field of cybersecurity. His work brought him diverse clients, from small startups to major corporations. He tackled complex challenges, developed innovative protection methods, and continued to evolve in this dynamic field. Recognizing that cybersecurity is an ever-changing field, Jacob decided to further his education. He enrolled in a master's program in cybersecurity, delving into deeper aspects of the field and expanding his horizons. The studies were challenging, but Jacob felt that each step made him stronger and more confident. In university, Jacob connected with like-minded peers, students who also aspired to excel in cybersecurity. They formed their own group to collaboratively solve difficult problems and exchange experiences. This collective became an important source of support and inspiration for Jacob. Understanding that cybersecurity is important not only in the corporate sphere but also for society as a whole, Jacob began giving lectures and seminars to schoolchildren and students. He talked about online risks, protection methods, and inspired the youth to choose an ethical path in the world of technology. With the passing years, Jacob's success in the field of cybersecurity grew, and his name became known in select circles. He received invitations to conferences, his articles were published in renowned journals, and his advice was valued by many companies. However, an unpleasant shadow cast over this success: envy from his father, Richard. Richard had always dreamt of a better life for Jacob. He saw potential in him and believed that his son could change his destiny. But Jacob's achievements in a field he couldn't comprehend stirred mixed emotions in Richard. He began comparing his own life to his son's successes and felt undervalued. Each new achievement of Jacob's dealt a blow to Richard's self-esteem. He concealed his feelings, but a conflict raged within him. Fatherly guidance about happiness, being stable work, and honest earnings faded against the backdrop of his son's successful career. The conflict between Jacob and Richard intensified. They found fewer common topics for conversation, and their meetings turned into tense silences. Jacob felt that he had disappointed his father despite his achievements. One day, Jacob decided to openly talk to his father about his feelings. He told him how tormented he was by the thought that his successes could cause pain and envy. In turn, Richard admitted that his reaction had been wrong and that he was proud of the person Jacob had become. After the long-awaited conversation, Jacob and Richard seemed to have found an understanding. However, new issues began to surface. His father still couldn't fully accept his son's successes and talents, and a new tension emerged in their relationship. Richard began to ponder how he could influence Jacob's choices. Instead of providing support and inspiration, he began raising questions about futures and careers that might seem less appealing to his son. He hoped that by doing so, he could redirect his son's talents. Jacob sensed a change in his relationship with his father. He noticed that topics that had previously not caused disputes now became subjects of debate. He tried to explain his motivations and plans, but he felt his words weren't getting through to Richard. Richard, on one hand, wanted to ensure a stable future for his son, but on the other hand, grappled with internal conflict. His own doubts and envy prevented him from objectively understanding Jacob's desires and needs. A battle raged within him between the desire to protect and to restrain. Fatherly attempts to influence his son became increasingly apparent. Richard tried to convince Jacob to choose more reliable and ordinary paths, not realizing that he was limiting his son's potential and dreams. With each new project and achievement, Jacob became more engrossed in his work and professional ambitions, leading to misunderstandings with his wife. He wasn't always able to explain why his work was so important to him and what exact tasks he was working on. This caused irritation and discord in their relationship. Many promises made to the family went unfulfilled due to unexpected urgent tasks and projects. Jacob tried to allocate time for his family, but he was always occupied with something else. This shattered trust and respect for his words. Family quarrels became more frequent and heated. His wife expressed dissatisfaction with the lack of support and attention, while the children felt disappointed in their father. Jacob understood that his actions were affecting family relationships, but he didn't know how to change the situation. Jacob noticed that misunderstandings and disagreements were arising between him and his wife, Jane. He felt that she was becoming more insistent on him engaging in less risky activities and dedicating more time to the family. Jacob began to notice that his wife and father often had private conversations, and this caused him concern. He began to suspect that Richard was trying to influence Jane and sway her to his point of view. Soon, Jacob learned from Jane that she actually shared her father's concerns and wanted him to slow down and reassess his priorities. She expressed worry for his safety and the future of their family. These conversations became a source of conflict between Jacob and Jane. He felt that his wife wasn't supporting him and didn't believe in his ability to make the world safer. They began to drift apart, unable to find common ground. Family conflicts escalated, and the relationship between Jacob and Jane came under serious strain. Differences in worldviews and priorities took center stage, while love and trust started to erode. Jacob tried to explain to Jane why his work mattered to him, to society, and to the future of their children. He attempted to show that his goals and motivations were pure, but Jane remained steadfast in her opinion. One day, Richard gathered the family together and announced that he had been diagnosed with an incurable illness. Doctors predicted he had no more than a month to live. This revelation shocked everyone and rocked their lives to the core. Richard's terminal illness brought waves of grief and contemplation to Jacob's family. Jacob began to realize that his father's time was limited, and he understood that the long-awaited moment of reconciliation had become invaluable. The family rallied around Richard to support him during his final days. Jacob realized that now was the right time to tell his father about his work, his aspirations, and his successes in cybersecurity. Jacob and Richard engaged in long and heartfelt conversations. Jacob shared with his father how he had overcome difficulties and misunderstandings between them. Richard realized that his concerns had been unfounded, and he began to take pride in his son. On the brink of death, Richard understood that his attempts to interfere in Jacob's life had been misguided. He asked for forgiveness for his actions and expressed pride in the person Jacob had become. In turn, Jacob forgave his father and thanked him for finding the strength to overcome challenges. Richard's final days were filled with family gatherings, story exchanges, and smiles. He passed away feeling surrounded by love and accepted for who he was. His death became a somber yet pivotal moment for all family members. Richard's death left a void in Jacob's heart. He grappled with a profound sense of loss and reevaluated his priorities. However, in the weeks that followed, he found himself delving deeper into his work, trying to distract himself from the pain and emptiness. Jane hoped that Richard's death would change Jacob and make him prioritize the family more. However, her hopes faded when she saw her husband once again immersing himself in his work, disregarding her expectations. Feeling disappointed and deceived, Jane decided to take drastic action. She devised a plan to trick Jacob, aiming to show him how he had been sidelining her. She decided to disappear and make him realize what he was losing. One day, Jane vanished. She left a message explaining her decision to leave and start a new life away from Jacob. She intended to shock him and make him realize his role in the deterioration of their relationship. Jacob was shocked and desperately began searching for his wife. He realized the extent to which his focus on work had truly left her behind and driven her to this point. His past mistakes haunted him, and he understood that he needed to change. In his search for Jane, Jacob discovered evidence of her scheme. It was a shock to him, and he realized that his work-focused mindset had truly left her behind and driven her to desperation. Failed attempts to locate Jane plunged Jacob into a deep depression. He felt lost and helpless, not knowing how to regain his family and rectify past mistakes. Jacob realized that he was now utterly alone. He understood that his decisions and actions had led him to not only lose his wife but also the trust and support of his loved ones. He felt isolated and adrift. Jacob plunged into a state of deep sorrow and sadness. He began to forget about his work and achievements, focusing only on what he had lost. His confidence and self-esteem were undermined, and he felt shattered. Over time, Jacob began to realize that he couldn't remain in this state for long. He understood that he needed to find a way to overcome his depression and regain his strength. he decided to start a new chapter in his life. Jacob sought help from professionals and began seeing a psychologist. He worked on his emotions and thoughts to restore his inner balance. He also started rebuilding his relationships with his children and began giving them more attention. Gradually, Jacob began to emerge from his depression and regain control over his life. He returned to work, but now with healthier priorities and a balance between work and family. He grew closer to his children and gradually found inner peace. After years of solitude, Jacob finally began to feel some internal relief. He found the strength to seek joy in life, focus on his goals, and learn from his past mistakes. One day, Jacob stumbled upon information that turned his world upside down. It turned out that his father, Richard, was still alive. Doctors had managed to save his life, but Richard had chosen not to share this information with anyone. Jacob felt immense shock and confusion upon learning that his father was alive. He couldn't understand why Richard had decided not to return and reveal his existence. His heart was engulfed in a storm of emotions. Years of loneliness and disappointments had led Richard to make an unusual choice. He realized that he and Jacob had become estranged, and he found it difficult to envision how they could mend their relationship. Thus, he chose to keep his existence a secret. Jacob embarked on a quest for truth and attempted to reach out to his father. He felt it was crucial for him to learn the truth and attempt to mend their relationship. He decided to uncover why Richard hadn't returned and how they could move forward. Finally, Jacob managed to reconnect with Richard. The meeting was filled with tension and emotions. Both of them understood that much had changed over the years, and finding common ground was challenging. As Richard re-entered Jacob's life, it sparked an internal conflict. On one hand, Jacob was relieved that his father was alive, but on the other hand, he couldn't fully comprehend or accept his father's decision to remain in the shadows. Jacob decided to try to rebuild his relationship with his father. He proposed to Richard that they talk and unravel what had happened all those years and how they could move forward. They engaged in lengthy and candid conversations, seeking understanding and reconciliation. As the relationship between Jacob and Richard began to mend, Jacob decided that it was time for him to start a new chapter in his life. He made the decision to move to a different city, hoping to start afresh and build his career in a new environment. Jacob relocated to the new city and began building his new life. He found a job in cybersecurity and actively pursued professional growth. The change of scenery helped him discover new opportunities and prospects. In the new city, Jacob made new friends and acquaintances. He met people who shared his interests and values, helping him feel more connected and integrated into society. As Jacob began to socialize with new people and build relationships, he also grew closer to his children. He realized the importance of dedicating time and attention to his family, actively working to rebuild his relationships with them. The move to a new city and the reconnection with his father marked a new chapter in Jacob's life. He started to understand that the past could be accepted and lessons could be learned from mistakes, while the future always remained open to new possibilities and changes. Despite the new life and attempts to mend family bonds, the temptation to revert to the dark side remained strong. Jacob started to believe that his hacking and programming skills could bring him quick and easy money. Jacob began engaging in unauthorized intrusions into computer systems. His skills were impressive, and he effortlessly breached secure systems. Each successful hack fueled his ambitions and thirst for more. With each successful hack, Jacob took on greater risks. He encountered new threats and adversaries, now on his trail. His activities couldn't go unnoticed, jeopardizing his freedom and safety. Jacob continued his secret hacking activities, keeping his dark deeds hidden from his family. However, his commitment to his family started to waver. He once again began dedicating less time to his children and wife, becoming immersed in the dangerous world of cybercrime. Soon, Jacob faced real danger when he attempted to hack a major corporation. He was detected and exposed, and the company took measures to track him down. His life and freedom were now at stake. The situation spiraled out of control, and Jacob realized that he had not only lost his freedom but also the trust of his family. His wife discovered his illicit activities, and it was the final straw. She felt that he hadn't changed and couldn't resist temptation. Jacob found himself facing serious consequences for his actions. His family was disappointed and torn apart, his freedom restricted, and his future uncertain. He realized that the choice to return to criminal activity had been a mistake, and now he had to face the repercussions. Over time, Jacob realized that he couldn't remain in the light anymore, and that his crimes were catching up to him. He understood that for his own safety and the safety of his loved ones, he needed to disappear. Jacob reluctantly made the decision to leave everything behind and start a new life in complete isolation. Jacob vanished from public view and began living in complete solitude. He chose a remote location where no one knew about his past and where he could hide from pursuit. He avoided contact with others and maintained his secrecy. In this new life of isolation and survival, Jacob turned inward. He started reflecting on his mistakes, trying to understand how he had allowed his life to reach this point. He used this time for self-improvement and introspection. Realizing that his past was forever tainted by his crimes, Jacob decides to make a decision that will change his life forever. He understands that he needs to leave everything behind and start anew. Thus, he devises a plan to stage his own death and begin a fresh life under a different identity. Jacob undergoes a complex and lengthy process of faking his own death. He creates a new persona, leaving behind only memories of his previous life. He manages to orchestrate his death in a believable way and disappears from the lives of everyone he knew. Under his new name and identity, Jacob starts anew in a different place. He forges new connections, finds new interests, and begins rebuilding his life. In this new world, he is no longer tied to a criminal past and can truly start over. Living in constant fear that his past may be revealed, Jacob carefully guards his new identity, avoiding anything that could lead to exposure. He realizes that his safety and success in this new life depend on how well he can preserve his secret. Despite the new life and opportunities, Jacob wrestles with an internal conflict. He understands that he has a chance for a fresh start, but he also realizes he cannot escape from his past and his mistakes. Within him, the desire for redemption battles against the fear of exposure. As the years go by, Jacob comes to realize that redemption cannot be found solely through a change of name and identity. He begins to use his skills and knowledge to help others, to fight cybercrime, and protect the online world. He understands that redemption comes through positive actions and deeds. Ultimately, Jacob understands that redemption can only be found through creation, not destruction. He finds his place in this new world, where he can use his skills for good and contribute to society. His new life becomes a true fresh beginning. Jacob's journey serves as a reminder that the past cannot be erased, but each individual can find a path to redemption through positive actions and a new beginning. His story leaves an everlasting impact, demonstrating that even after dark times, there can be light ahead.